He thought she'd always be there, that no matter how careless his actions, how inconsistent his love, or how selfish his choices, she would stay. Because good women have a habit of holding on longer than they should. They love with a depth that's rare, give chances most don't deserve, and carry the weight of two people's effort just to keep the relationship alive. But there comes a point, even for the woman with the biggest heart, when enough is enough. And when she walks, she doesn't just take her presence with her, she takes her light, her warmth, her belief in him. That's when karma begins its quiet, powerful work, not through revenge, but through realization. He hurt a good woman, and now life will show him exactly what that means. At first, he didn't notice it. The change was subtle. The texts weren't as long, the laughter wasn't as loud, and the way she looked at him started to shift. But good women don't just fall out of love in one moment. They dissolve slowly, like sugar in water, sweet to the end, even as they disappear. She started withdrawing the very things he had taken for granted. The small check-ins during the day, the thoughtful gestures, the emotional safety net she always extended when he failed to meet her halfway. All of it began to fade, not out of spite, but out of exhaustion. Because a good woman doesn't stop caring without reason. She simply grows tired of being the only one who does. What he didn't realize in the thick of his pride and distractions was that her silence wasn't emptiness. It was a message that said, I've been trying, I've been patient, I've been giving you every part of me and asking for so little in return, and still, I'm overlooked. A good woman will stay longer than she should, trying to fix things that aren't hers to fix. She'll overextend herself, not because she lacks boundaries, but because she believes in love. She believes in people. She believed in him. That belief is what kept her standing there when everything in her told her to walk away. But eventually, belief dies when it's constantly betrayed by behavior. When he hurt her, it didn't come from one big betrayal. It was the accumulation of little things, the unreturned calls, the dismissive tone, the forgetfulness of things that mattered to her. He didn't cheat on her with someone else. He cheated her of the love and consistency she deserved. And that's what broke her. Not a single dramatic event, but the slow erosion of her emotional security. She stayed while hurting, tried while doubting, and loved while bleeding. That's the kind of heartbreak that doesn't just wound, it scars. And when she finally decided to walk away, it wasn't a loud goodbye. It was quiet. It was calm, the same way waves retreat from the shore after a storm. Still powerful, just no longer trying to crash. And in that moment, something inside him shifted too. Because he never expected her to leave. He thought she would always choose him, even when he gave her nothing to hold on to. But when a good woman walks away, she doesn't turn back. Not because she stopped loving, but because she started loving herself more. That's what he didn't see coming. He woke up one morning and realized that no one else made him feel the way she did. No one else challenged him to be better while still accepting him as he was. No one else created a space where he could be vulnerable without judgment. And now, all of that was gone. That absence became louder than her presence ever was. Because it's not until a good woman leaves that you understand what her presence really meant. She didn't just love him, she healed him, inspired him, rooted for him when he wasn't even rooting for himself. And karma? Karma isn't always a lightning bolt of revenge. Sometimes it's just the slow, burning regret of realizing what you lost. It's watching her glow in someone else's light, knowing she once tried to give all of that to you. It's the moment you realize that she was the peace you'll never feel again, the calm in your chaos, and the softness that your pride destroyed. That's when it really hits. Not when she leaves, but when she's no longer yours to reach. In the beginning, he thought he had time. He thought she'd always be there, waiting, forgiving, understanding. He mistook her loyalty for permanence, assuming that no matter how many times he pushed her away, she'd return with open arms. But that's the problem with hurting a good woman. There comes a moment when even her biggest heart runs out of chances to give. She may have stayed longer than most, made excuses for his coldness, convinced herself that this was just a phase. But she wasn't naive. She saw the truth, even when she didn't say it out loud. And over time, that truth began to settle in her bones. She started to see how much of herself she had been pouring into someone who only took. And the thing about good women is they don't retaliate when they're hurt. They don't scream or slam doors. They retreat quietly, intentionally. She started doing less, not out of bitterness, but out of clarity. She stopped trying to fix what he wouldn't acknowledge was broken. She stopped initiating conversations, stopped checking in, stopped carrying the emotional weight of the relationship on her own. And that shift, though small at first, began to shake him, because the energy she once gave so freely was suddenly unavailable. And that absence, that quiet space where her love used to live, became a mirror he couldn't avoid. What followed was discomfort. Not just the discomfort of being alone, but the kind that comes when you realize you were the reason someone stopped trying. He started feeling her absence in the moments he used to take for granted. The way she'd ask about his day, how she remembered the little things he said in passing, how her presence brought peace without needing to say a word. And now, it was just silence. No anger, no drama, just a gap he couldn't fill with distractions or other people. And then comes the part that really stings. Watching her rise, watching her smile again, not because of him, but in spite of him, seeing her pour that love she once gave him into her own life, into her healing, into her glow. Because when a good woman stops investing in the wrong man, her energy becomes magnetic. She radiates differently. Her joy returns, her confidence blossoms, and suddenly, everyone else sees what he was too blind to appreciate. And that's when regret hits hardest. Not when she leaves, but when he sees someone else receiving the version of her he used to take for granted. And while he sits with the weight of his decisions, wondering how he lost someone who had given him the world, she doesn't look back. Not because she hates him, but because she finally understands her worth. She realizes she was never asking for too much. She was just asking the wrong person. And that realization, that quiet knowing, becomes her power. Because healing doesn't always come from closure or apologies. Sometimes it comes from reclaiming your peace. And that's what she did. He'll try to reach out eventually, of course, when the silence becomes too loud, when he sees her shining, when he realizes no one else sees him the way she did. But by then it's too late. Not because she's bitter, but because she's free. And that's the twist he never expected. The day she stopped choosing him was the day she finally chose herself. And once a good woman does that, nothing can bring her back to the version of herself that begged to be loved right. There's a moment, often subtle, where something inside her shifts. It's not loud or explosive. It's not the kind of scene you'd see in a movie. It's quieter, almost invisible from the outside. But internally it's massive. It's the moment a good woman realizes she's no longer holding on out of love, but out of habit, out of hope, out of the version of him she created in her mind, rather than the one he's actually shown her. And once that moment arrives, she begins to detach in ways that are irreversible. At first it may seem like nothing has changed. She still smiles, she still listens, she might even still respond to his messages or share space with him. But emotionally, she's moving. She's pulling herself out of the space where she used to wait for crumbs. She's no longer looking for signs that he cares. She's no longer hoping that this time he'll mean it when he says he'll change. That inner shift is her taking back power she once handed over too easily. Not because she was weak, but because she believed in him more than he believed in himself. As her detachment grows, he begins to notice something's off. Her energy isn't the same. The sparkle in her eyes when she sees him? Dimmed. The urgency in her voice when she talked about the future? Gone. She becomes calm in a way that's almost unsettling, because that calm isn't peace, it's resolve. He starts to realize that she's no longer affected by his games, his silence, or his inconsistent affection. The things he used to do that would cause her to fight for clarity now barely cause a ripple. And that's when panic sets in. But what makes this moment so profound is that it's not born from spite. She's not punishing him. She's protecting herself. The tears she cried in the past have dried. The emotional knots she used to twist herself into just to feel loved are now unraveling. She's starting to see that love isn't supposed to hurt this much. and that a relationship shouldn't feel like a battlefield where she's the only one showing up with armor. He might still try to make half-hearted efforts, text her late at night, send a thinking of you message when he feels her slipping, but it won't land the same. Because she's no longer waiting, she's no longer starving for the affection she once begged him to give freely. He doesn't understand that while he was playing it cool, she was healing. While he was out chasing attention, she was learning what it feels like to give that attention to herself. While he was calculating how much effort to give, she was finally recognizing that she deserves someone who doesn't need to be convinced to care. And when a woman reaches that level of clarity, it's powerful, because it means she's no longer tied to the illusion of love. She's grounded in reality, and that reality doesn't include chasing someone who couldn't see her value when it mattered most. And so the detachment becomes complete, not with a dramatic exit, but with a quiet disappearance. She leaves the emotional table without flipping it. She lets go without needing revenge. Her revenge is her peace, her glow, her laughter returning without him being the reason. And that's what will haunt him. Not her anger, not her words, but her absence. The empty space where her loyalty used to be. The silence that used to be filled with her care, her checking in, her showing up. By the time he realizes she's truly gone, she's already somewhere else. Not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually. And what he'll feel isn't just loss, it's the weight of being replaced by peace. Because when a good woman detaches, it's not about making him feel what she felt. It's about never allowing herself to feel that way again. When a man hurts a good woman, he often does so assuming she'll always be there. He underestimates the depth of her love and the strength of her silence. He mistakes her patience for passivity, her forgiveness for weakness, and her willingness to stay as an inability to leave. But what he doesn't realize is that every time he let her down, every time he dismissed her feelings or minimized her value, she was making mental notes, not out of bitterness, but out of clarity. She was quietly learning who he really was, not through his words, but through his repeated actions. Eventually, the most powerful thing she does isn't to lash out or beg for change. It's to go silent. This silence isn't passive, it's intentional. It's where her transformation begins. She stops explaining herself, stops repeating the same conversation, stops trying to be heard by someone who chooses not to listen. In that silence, something powerful brews. Her self-respect returns, her confidence grows, and her energy shifts. She no longer argues for her worth because she realizes it doesn't need to be argued for, it just needs to be honored by the right person. He'll start to notice the change, but not immediately. At first, he'll enjoy the silence. He'll think it means she's cooled off, that she's done being emotional. He'll assume it's a break in the storm and that everything will return to normal soon. But what he doesn't know is that while he's getting comfortable again, she's building a life that no longer revolves around him. The silence isn't just her retreating, it's her rebuilding. She's reconnecting with herself, rediscovering her passions, reestablishing the boundaries she let him cross too many times. And then one day her silence becomes permanent, not out of spite, but because she's healed to the point where he no longer holds emotional power over her. She doesn't check her phone hoping for a message. She doesn't scroll through his social media to decode his behavior. She doesn't wait for him to wake up and realize what he lost. That version of her, the one who stayed up at night crying, the one who over-explained and overextended, is gone. And in her place stands a woman who no longer chases closure because she gave it to herself. How he starts to feel the shift. He begins to sense her absence, not just physically, but emotionally. He notices that she's not reacting, not reaching out, not engaging. And in that space, he's left to sit with the very emptiness he created. The things he took for granted, her affection, her presence, her loyalty, become glaringly noticeable in their absence. It's not that she became cold, it's that she reclaimed her warmth for herself. It's not that she stopped caring, it's that she started caring about her peace more. And what makes it all so devastating for him is that she didn't leave in rage. She didn't slam the door or try to destroy him on her way out. She just stopped showing up for someone who never showed up for her. That kind of exit, the one done with grace and self-respect, lingers far longer than any argument ever could. It makes him reflect in the quiet moments, question what he lost, and realized that his comfort zone became his cage. He chose his ego over her heart, and now he has both, his pride intact and her gone. That silence becomes the echo of everything she ever gave. It's her final gift to him, wrapped not in anger, but in indifference. And that indifference is what stings the most, because deep down, he knows she loved him in a way that few ever will. But now she's moved on to love herself in that same way, and that's what truly breaks him. When a man hurts a good woman, he rarely anticipates that the ripple effect of his actions will reach far beyond the moment he made the mistake. He might think she'll be upset for a day or two, shed a few tears, vent to her friends, and then eventually return, like she always has. But what he underestimates is the long-term consequence of breaking trust with someone who loved him with a rare kind of honesty. Because when a good woman finally begins the process of letting go, it changes the entire trajectory of both their lives. And nothing can reverse that clock. In the beginning, she was his safe place. She believed in him even when he doubted himself. She gave more than she received, not because she was naive, but because she had a generous heart. She forgave him, even when he didn't deserve it, not because she was weak, but because she hoped he would rise to the standard she saw in him. Her love was his mirror, showing him a version of himself that even he didn't fully believe he could be. And that's where the tragedy starts, because he didn't just lose her when he hurt her. He lost the best version of himself that existed when he was loved by her. As she begins to pull back, a shift occurs that he doesn't immediately notice. She becomes quieter, not colder. She starts giving shorter responses, not because she's trying to punish him, but because the emotional labor has worn her thin. She's not trying to provoke him into action anymore. She's trying to protect herself from more pain. And while he might misread this as moodiness or distance, what he's really witnessing is the slow withdrawal of someone who has realized that love without respect is a battle she's not willing to fight anymore. The more she steps away emotionally, the more clearly she begins to see him, not the potential she clung to, but the reality of who he is. And in doing so, she finally allows herself to acknowledge all the ways he consistently let her down. She recalls the emotional gaslighting, the inconsistency, the broken promises masked as misunderstandings, and the constant expectation that she should simply be grateful for crumbs. Each recollection is another thread she untangles from her attachment to him. And the tighter she weaves those threads into her own healing, the more distant he becomes from the pedestal she once placed him on. At some point, he begins to notice her change. Maybe it's when she doesn't respond to a message right away. Maybe it's when he sees a photo of her smiling without a trace of sadness. Maybe it's when someone else starts to admire her in a way he never did. Whatever the trigger, it's in that moment he realizes the depth of what he's lost. But by then, she's no longer in the same place. She's not trying to win him back. She's not hoping he'll change. She's just living in a world where her peace is no longer negotiable. And the hardest pill for him to swallow is this. There's no grand speech he can make, no flowers he can send, no nostalgic message he can type at midnight that will undo the damage. Because what he lost wasn't just a good woman. It was the one person who loved him despite his flaws, who saw past the ego and tried to nurture the soul underneath. And by the time he figures that out, she's long gone. Not bitter, not broken, just better. Better without him, because she finally realized she always deserved more. By the time karma begins to unfold its quiet justice, the man who hurt a good woman starts to feel something he hadn't truly prepared for: emptiness. It doesn't arrive loudly. It doesn't crash into his life with chaos. Instead, it creeps in slowly, like a shadow stretching across a room at sunset. It's the silence that follows a message she no longer responds to. It's the moment he sees something that reminds him of her and realizes there's no more connection left to bridge. And what's worse, it's not because she became cold, it's because she became indifferent. She no longer aches, she no longer waits, she no longer wonders, and that's when he realizes he didn't just lose her, he lost the one woman who truly saw him. The world doesn't flip overnight. He might have moved on quickly at first, maybe into someone else's arms, maybe into his distractions, or maybe into that all-familiar bravado that tells him he can always get her back if he wants to. But days turn into weeks, and reality starts to hum with a different frequency. the connection he shares with someone new doesn't hit the same depth. He begins to notice that no one listens the way she did. No one laughs at his stories quite the same. No one reads his moods, understands his silences, or genuinely cares to lift him up when he's low. That's when it hits him. What he thought was replaceable wasn't her. It was his own lack of vision. He might try to convince himself he's fine. He'll tell his friends he's better off, that he's not looking back, that the relationship had run its course. But late at night, when his phone is still, when no new attention can satisfy the void she used to fill, he'll scroll back through old photos, stare at texts he never deleted, and feel the ache that only arrives when you finally understand the cost of your actions. Because he didn't just push her away, he trained her to live without him. And she did. That's the poetic justice. She didn't have to do anything for karma to take over. She didn't have to get revenge, make a dramatic exit, or even explain herself in the end. She just healed. She cried when he didn't see it. She journaled through the nights he didn't call. She slowly built her strength in the spaces where he created pain. And now? She's glowing in a way that isn't for him. Her smile is no longer seeking his validation. Her peace doesn't hinge on his presence. And when he finally sees her, truly sees her, it won't be because she's trying to make him. It'll be because her silence became louder than any words she could have said. There's a unique kind of regret that comes from watching someone you hurt thrive without you. It humbles a man. It forces reflection. And whether or not he admits it out loud, he'll feel it every time he sees a piece of her shine in places he can no longer reach. He'll hear her laugh in his memory, feel her warmth in moments of loneliness, and wonder, quietly, endlessly, what would have happened if he had just treated her right when it mattered. Karma didn't come to punish him. It came to show him that life doesn't always give second chances when you waste the first one. And by the time he finally understands the depth of what he lost, she's already living a life where he's no longer part of the story. Not because she's bitter, but because she grew. And that growth became the justice he never saw coming. In the end, when a man hurts a good woman, karma isn't about punishment, it's about balance. It's about the natural consequences that follow when kindness is met with disregard and love is met with neglect. She may have been broken for a moment, but her strength, her growth, and her peace become the true power that shifts the entire story. Meanwhile, he's left to face the weight of what he lost, not through anger or bitterness, but through a quiet, undeniable realization of the value she held and how irreversibly she's moved beyond him. The true lesson here is that when you hurt someone who loved you genuinely, it's not just them who suffers. You lose the chance to be part of a rare and beautiful connection, and sometimes that loss is the most profound form of karma there is.